Yep.
Okay. So thank you very much, Ronald. It's been a pleasure hosting you. The team are all happy here. And I would like to say a big thank you and hope to see you more in our event.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks so much.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So before I move to our next speaker, I think it will be fair enough to say some big shout out to our sponsors of this event. In fact, we are currently at the London College of International Business Studies here in Accra, Ghana campus, and it is such an awesome campus. I think that you have to visit us in person next time. For those who couldn't make it in person, you really have to visit us in person. They run short courses also, such as strategy, business system analysis, fundamentals of data analysis, fundamentals of project management, introduction to business administration, logistics management, introduction to IT management, operations management, strategic management, supply chain management, and financial management. And these are short courses with a duration of 10 to 12 weeks. I'm betting my whole life on their way of teaching. I've had the privilege to go through their system, and their campus is designed with ultra modern facilities. So you should try and visit them. When we get to our 10 minutes break, I'll display their logo for you to see the school. It's an awesome surrounding and environment. So yes, if you've not heard of them, I mean, you should go and find out. They run all your business courses and all your project management courses. So now we would move to our third speaker in the person of Andersson. Yes, Andersson, please, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you mean Jonah? Yeah.
Yes, Jonah Anderson.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 Jonah.
I thought there was
Whoa,
another
good to see you.
speaker.
Good to see you. Good to
Yes.
see you. You are
Hi.
looking awesome. Yes, you are looking
Thank you.
awesome. Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was like there was another speaker and then me, because my schedule is, I believe, like 12:40. Like I'm the third speaker, so I'm the next in line.
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay.
In
All
fact,
right.
you want us to. I mean, I'm feeling that we should even take the group picture again because we don't want
Oh.
to miss your awesome face. Joshua,
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
Joshua,
thanks.
we have to take a group picture again because I mean we
Yeah.
need to capture Jonah.
Hi,
Oh, I
Jonah.
miss. Hi, I'm sorry I
Hi,
was late.
Jonah.
I was,
Um,
yeah, hi. I'm sorry I was
so
late. I was hosting
okay,
another event in my user group.
okay.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes, yes. And
you're actually welcome to Ghana virtually, and we are very happy to see you. You're looking
Yeah, thank you.
beautiful this afternoon,
Thank you.
and we can't wait to listen to you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you learned something. I did this
Yeah.
presentation before in the past, but I wanted to share in your user group so I can
yes,
answer a
yes,
few
yes.
questions.
Today
Yeah.
is actually the second time Jonah is joining us. So let me quickly do that introduction. I don't want to miss that because Jonah is such special to us, just like our two speakers that spoke before us. So first of all, she is a founder of the Sweden developer user group, right? And
Yeah, Azure User Group Sweden, yes.
yes, and she is a Microsoft MVP as well, and she works at. Let me get the name right. Just a second. Okay, so she works at the Forefront Consulting, and she's pretty awesome. You will love the section. So Jonah, I will not waste too much time. I think we are just on time. So
Thank
kindly
you.
take the
Thank you.
platform. Yes,
Yeah.
and we appreciate.
Yes, and I have, I believe, 45 minutes to present, right?
Yes, you actually have an hour and 20 minutes to present. So you can
Okay.
do, I mean, it's all
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just share my screen. So I will be doing like a PowerPoint presentation, and then in between, at the end of my session, I will be like sharing a code and a bit of demo for everyone. And then at the end of the session, I can answer some questions if there's any in the chat, if it's okay with
Okay.
everyone. Let's see. Let me see if I share the right screen now. I have 3 screens. All right, let's see. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, yes, pretty awesome. You can see.
Okay. All right. Yes. Hi, everyone. So today I will be talking about Azure Functions in .NET, in .NET Core, and not just Azure Functions, but also about Durable Functions, which is an extension of Azure Functions. So let me introduce myself. I know that I was introduced already, but those who don't know me, I'm Jonah Andersson. I'm from Sweden. I work as a software engineer consultant at Forefront Consulting on my day job, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP for Azure and founder and co-organizer of Azure User Group Sweden. And I believe my community leader is here on this meeting as well, Håkan. So that's me. And what I plan to go through today is about serverless, what it is really, and Azure Functions, durable functions, developing serverless in .NET, as well as a mini demo, example demo for you, for any of you is interested to kind of like get started and to check it out. So first, I want to introduce you into serverless, what it is really about. As every one of us know, we that are like working in software development, and even we, I mean, in IT pro roles, we kind of like familiar about the basics of cloud computing, in which we know that in on-premise we have everything on the left side. If you can see, we on-premise we have control about everything: your data, your applications, your code, your servers, storage, and everything. But if we move to the cloud, from left to right, we see that we have different types of deployment models. And with that, we have like the infrastructure as a service, and we have platform as a service, function as a service, and then software as a service. So software as a service, as we know, Office 365. We also have Salesforce. And what we're focusing right now or today on my session is the function as a service, or the serverless, in which, as you can see here, the dark or light blue section, you see that the cloud vendor, for example, Azure, manages everything from application down to networking. But we as developers or company or organization, we take care of developing functions, logic for that, and we take care on how we manage or handle our data. So that's our focus today. And I want to show you this favorite like section of the cloud computing, in which when it comes to monolithic architecture, we have more control. Like we have access to everything. It's like a layered cake. Like we have servers in one layer, we have a database, we have storage and data and code. But then we also have another technology called microservices. They're like mini cupcakes. Like they're like small services, but they're kind of like isolated. And it's also, we have control over them, but we also have like a microcontrol in each of its function. And then I consider serverless as a sweet comparison as like mini candies. Like we have different flavors of it, but they're pretty light. Like, after a meal, you want to have something sweet. Instead of getting a big cake, you can have a small piece of candy and you're satisfied. So I consider serverless as a candy because it's kind of like pretty light. And it's also the same when it comes to development. In monolith architecture, you have more control, But that also means that you have more responsibilities like maintaining the servers. But when it comes to choosing serverless, it also means for us developer that we can gain more productivity. And I hope that I didn't make you hungry with my comparison here. And services that are serverless on Microsoft Azure. So when you work with serverless applications or services in Azure, you have the benefit of enhancing your developer productivity, which means that you don't need to like upgrade your servers on the databases. You just need to focus on the logic and the code that you want to deliver to your clients. And also, serverless on Microsoft Azure allows us to auto-scale automatically. If you do that on a normal on-premise system, you have to actually like scale up or scale down. Like for example, if you have a lot of like workloads and reading in your database, you have to upgrade the performance of your database or your servers. But in serverless, you don't need to do that because it's auto set to auto scale. And then you have the option for the pay-per-use model, which means that you only pay for what you use and what you consume. And this is for the consumption pricing model for the serverless. And you can also develop intelligent apps. Like, for example, you can integrate your Azure functions with your IoT services on Azure. And also like logic apps, power apps, any other like intelligent apps, like for example, machine learning as well, and cognitive services in Azure. And also the ability to solve complex problems, especially for the extension. You can use the extension durable functions for processing or creating logic for complex workflows that needs to be stateful. That's also useful. And seamless connectivity, which means that you can use Azure functions not just to communicate or to integrate with Azure services that is within the cloud platform, but you can also connect with external APIs and external services outside of Azure as well as other cloud platform. So that's what makes it pretty flexible type of technology. And I want to show you about the key problem. So I like to show this example because it's a typical one. I miss traveling. So sometimes when we travel, when we're in the airport, we sometimes end up being in the queue to check in or to go on the line. And sometimes we wish that we had another time to do something else. For example, when you are in the airport, you want to grab a cup of good coffee from Starbucks or your favorite snack, but you can't do that if you're on the line. So this is also the same problem that we have when we're programming. Sometimes we experience problem with concurrency. And I had this example while I was studying Java development. I'm a .NET developer, but I also studied Java. And I had this challenge, like story from one of my teachers, and he shared about the dining philosopher's story, in which like there are like 5 philosophers, but they only like have like limited chopsticks or spoon and fork to eat. So they have five philosopher, 5 forks, and the problem is that a philosopher needs both fork on his left and his right to eat. Otherwise, he can't. So there's a problem here that relates to programming, which is the deadlock, starvation, and of course concurrency problems. So my point here is that Azure functions or durable functions can help us with these problems. So what are Azure functions? So Azure functions are like our serverless compute cloud service. And you can code it in any languages, like for example, in C# and .NET, but you can also use F#, JavaScript, PowerShell, and other supported languages. And it is event-driven. So if your business requirement at your company doesn't really need your applications to be event driven, or if there's no need for that. So probably Azure functions are not the best option for you. So, but however, if you want event driven, or they have a requirement for like micro functions or microservices, this might be a good alternative. And if you have a need to integrate with other Azure services and third-party services as well. So basically, what Azure functions are composed of a code, our logic, and then we have our events and data, and that's it. That's how simple Azure functions are. So you have your code, your events and data, and that's Azure functions. But the events actually have, the Azure functions have two major parts. There's triggers and bindings. So a function can be triggered using different types of triggers that's documented in Microsoft Docs. The common ones are like HTTP trigger, there's like a blob storage trigger, there's a timer trigger, so there's different. And when it comes to bindings, for binding data, we have the input bindings and the output bindings. So those are Azure functions. And when it comes to pricing models, there are actually, even though serverless are actually serverless if it's consumption, it's not actually, to be honest, it's not called serverless if you have servers behind like the typical PaaS, like app service plan. But Azure Functions actually gave us the option and flexibility. For the common one that we call serverless is the consumption plan, which means that it scales automatically. You pay only for what you use, and there are limitations, but it's the most common one. However, if you need to have more features, or if you want to integrate your Azure functions with app service, for example, you can also choose to have an app service plan. The reason for this is that consumption plan, it's like pay only for what you use. And for example, if you code an Azure functions that has like unpredictable consumption from the user side, like for example, API calls, and you don't have control how many are them, or how big they are, or the data that's coming in and out. If you have consumption plan and you don't have a good cost management, it can be very expensive if you don't have control for that. But sometimes if a company wants to control the costs and wants a specific like amount of money to be paid in every subscription or plan, then app service, having a plan is a good option for that. And there's also a premium plan for premium options for Azure Functions, especially if you want to prevent cold start issues, as well as you want to integrate your Azure Functions with VNets in Azure. So those are the pricing models, and it's very unique depending on what you need. And also, next is durable functions. So what are durable functions? So durable functions are extension of Azure Functions. So they are like sisters and brothers. They're not enemies, but they help each other. So the purpose of durable functions is that you can use it if you have a requirement to write stateful or long-running or eternal workflows in your code or in your logic. And it also, compared to Azure Functions, it has limited supported languages right now. As far as I know, it supports C#, JavaScript, Python, F# and PowerShell. And it also helps you create stateful sub-orchestrations. So basically, durable functions solve complex workflow problems in a serverless architecture. And I think some of you, or maybe any of you, have heard about Azure Logic Apps as well. So Azure Logic App actually solve complex workflow problems as well that are stateful. But the difference between Azure Durable Functions and Azure Logic Apps is that Azure Durable Functions, you do it in the code, while Logic Apps, you do it in the UI or the Azure portal. So that's how the big difference that one of them, at least, that's known. And so basically, Azure Functions are stateless, meaning they lose their state, especially if the VMs in the cloud environments are restarted every time you trigger it. And durable functions, they are stateful. So if you want your task to be stateful, not lose its state, then durable functions are ideal to use instead of the normal functions. So the technology behind durable functions is Durable Task Framework, which is an open source library, and it is a lightweight framework. And historically, it was actually related to Azure Web Jobs. So if you worked with Web App Service, there's an add-on where you can add web jobs for implementing scripts in your web app. So historically, before Azure Function came in, that was like kind of like related historically, but now we have both functions to work on in serverless. So durable functions is special because it has different types. So a function is normal. So a normal functions has like can be triggered. But durable functions has three types. It has the client functions, we have the orchestrator, and then we also have the activities. So the client functions, as you can see here on the left, they are like the entry point for creating an instance of durable functions orchestrator. And then the orchestrator is like the workflow or the blueprint of all the tasks that you want to do in your workflow. It's like the orchestrator. It's like the orchestra, like a music. So someone is kind of like controlling how you want the music to flow. So it's like the orchestrator as well. And it describes, this is where, as a developer, this is where you write your code, what you want your entire function app to do, the durable one, at least. And orchestrator can only be triggered by the client function through the context. And in the orchestrator as well, you can create orchestrations. So you have an orchestration which has the workflow, and in your workflow, you can also create different workflows or several workflows that calls other activities. And an activity or activity functions, they are like normal Azure functions. They're like basic units worked in your orchestration. So I will be sharing about the different patterns for durable functions that might be useful. So the difference with the activity here, they're like normal Azure functions, but the difference with the activities in a durable orchestration is that they can only be called by the activity trigger from the orchestrator. Otherwise, it won't work or it won't trigger at all. So there are also another type. If you want work with entities, there's also a type called entity functions, and they're commonly used for durable entities. And they only support .NET and JavaScript, and it needs to have an entity trigger to be triggered, and supported only for durable functions above 2.0. So the orchestrator, he or she is very special when it comes to durable functions. It's because it needs to be deterministic when you design your workflow in your .NET code. And the reason why it needs to be designed deterministic or exactly as how you want it to be, it's because the entire workflow will be replayed. So if you're not certain or not determined in what you design in your workflow, there will be possibilities that your workflow will stop or it won't work in the production, for example. So I consider durable functions as I'm from the Philippines, and we have this like culture called Bayanihan spirit, where there's someone who has a small house and all the neighbors help together to move one house to another place, and all the neighbors help out, and there's one person that needs to help in which direction they should go. So I consider durable functions as like this as well. So deterministic versus non-deterministic. So if you can see here on the left, that's durable functions because there's an orchestrator that helps in that helps in keeping the flow. Well, on the right side, you see the normal functions. They're kind of like isolated, not dependent with each other. So these are the two differences that you can see as an overview. And when developing durable functions, it's good that there are do's and don'ts. So since it's deterministic, it's not good to generate GUID in your workflow. You can use a new GUID method instead. And there's also do not access data stores from the workflow. You can pass those instead. Blocking APIs like threads, it's not good to be in the orchestrator function. You can use the context instead. And don't create infinite loops. It's very important, especially if you're working with serverless on consumption model. Your bill can be infinite as well. So it's good not to put it in the orchestrator function. What you can do if you really need to repeat and do a loop, then you can use a create as new from the context within your orchestrator. And don't use current date time. It's because date and time, they're not static. They change all the time, every milliseconds. What you can do is use the default or prepared one, current UTC date time from the durable context. So there are different patterns. We have the application patterns. We have the function chaining. We have the fan in, fan out. We have the async HTTP APIs, and we also have the monitoring, human interaction, and external events correlation. That's waiting for external events. And function chaining, it's a sequence. It's like a chain. It's a sequence of function that executes in a specific order. And it works like this. So you have a function one that's triggered, and then you pass in the parameter. When it's done, pass in the parameter to the next function, and then you pass in the next parameter, so on and so forth. So function 2 is dependent on the result of function 1 in this flow, like a chain. And then in action, it looks like this in the code. So we have a try-catch block here where you have y that is called for the function 1, which is the f1. And then f2 waits for the result of x. And then function 3, f3, waits for the result or the parameter of y. And function chaining in action looks like this. So the orchestrator is started. So after you triggered it, maybe with an HTTP timer or a blob trigger, and when it started, you schedule your task 1 or activity 1, and then the orchestrator sleeps. And when activity 1 is done, the orchestrator wakes up, and then the activity 2 is scheduled. Orchestrator sleeps again. I'm getting sleepy. And activity 2 is done, and orchestration is completed. So that's how the function chaining works in action. I have an example later if our time permits. And what's the good thing? I want to show you this because the good thing about orchestrator sleeping, having a sleepy head, is that when the orchestrator sleep, you don't really get charged for other activities or other functions that are not running. You only get charged when the specific function is working. So that, I think, in the cost management perspective, that's pretty good. And the next pattern is the fan in, fan out. This is a good scenario. Fan in, fan out is the pattern where you execute multiple functions in parallel, as you can see here, the F2. And then you aggregate the result of those parallel actions and present the result differently as one. So as you can see in this code snippet, we have an example of a code where we back up the site content, and it uses the context. As you can see, it is using when all things are done there. It's using at the end a method called when all. That's the fan out and fan in part of it. So when you see a durable functions and it uses a when all, then that's using fan in and fan out method. And async, the next pattern is async HTTP API, and it's the opposite of the previous pattern because it exposes long-running processes over HTTP. And here is an example where I use this pattern, for example, to check if my website is available. So that is my website. So I use the HTTP trigger for this. And then when it comes to the orchestration, I used in the HTTP response, and then use the method get, and then send in also the URL of my website. And then I have a if condition here to check the status of my website, if it's good or not. If it's not good, then throw an exception. Otherwise, we'll print out the content of my website. So that's a simple example of async HTTP APIs. And there's also the monitor pattern. A monitor pattern is flexible, useful in flexible recurring processes in a workflow. And you can use timer trigger, usually is used for the monitor pattern. So here we have an example where we have a job that we want to monitor, and you have a timer to check on the status of that job status. So if you can see if job status is completed, send alert, call another activity and send alert to, for example, administrator for that. And the next one is the human interaction pattern, in which you request approval, for example, to a manager or to a person. And that person maybe is on a vacation somewhere in a beautiful place, but that person might not be available to process the approval. So there's no human interaction there, but you can program your durable functions to wait for a certain timer here and then do something else. So for example, if the manager or the one that needs to approve it doesn't respond within a day or over the weekend, then you can escalate it to either send an email to somebody else or do other tasks. So that's the human interaction. So this is how it looks on the code. It's also on the documentation as well. So aggregator patterns is usually used for aggregating events data over a period of time into a single addressable entity. As you can see here, you have a counter, and it's using switch case to work with entities. And durable functions, you can debug or code it, check on the status of it using Postman or your web browser as well. You can see all these parameters or IDs that you have. So your orchestration ID, the URL, of the instance. And if you want to terminate it, you can use terminate URL, purge the history, or restart the orchestration. You can also use this. And this is good if you want to control your workflow or orchestration. And to those that are interested in container development, you can also use Azure Functions with .NET, I mean, your favorite language, with Kubernetes using CADA. CADA means Kubernetes-based event-driven autoscaling. And you can use that to create serverless with containers. And this is the roadmap. I know we have .NET 6 already, but for now, these are the supports that's in for the durable functions. So as of right now, it's supported .NET 6. It will come as an LTS, but Azure Functions, it's already supported in .NET 5 and the .NET versions that are coming. And best practices, I recommend using application insights, Azure Storage Explorer to see the logs, for example, and deploy side-by-side deployment as well as deployment with breaking change. And there's a link, an article here that I like to recommend. It's like a study about blue-green deployment strategies when it comes to durable functions and serverless. So that's a good link. I will share my presentation later as well. So error handling. For us developers, it's important to handle errors. Otherwise, we don't know what's going on behind. So in Azure Functions, you can handle errors by calling another function activity. And you can also try call activity with retry async. And of course, the classic one, try catch blocks. So for durable functions, for example, you can actually set your code, one line of code, to automatically retry if it fails. So you can use the method call activity with retry async for that. And this is an example of a try catch block that uses an exception or catching it by calling another method. And you can also do testing with durable functions. So you can use a mock framework and XUnit. So this is a common one. So you do unit tests per method or function, but you can also unit test the entire workflow as well. So for developing Azure Functions, us as .NET developers or whatever the language that you're currently developing, you can actually use, there are different tools. The most important one is, of course, you have the Azure portal. You can also develop with Azure CLI. Of course, supported language. You can choose between via Visual Studio or VS Code. Both supports .NET Core for Azure Functions. And it's important that you download the core tools, the recent version for your system. And it's useful while you're debugging or developing locally to have like a Postman or a web browser to work on, especially when you're working with HTTP triggers. And also Azure Storage Explorer for local dev, but there's also one in the portal. So I'm gonna do like a demo right now. So my demo, before I show it or switch screen, is that I have a code, a small example of durable functions where I have a blob trigger, and it will be triggered when I upload an image to my storage account or my Azure storage. So I have a cloud data, a cloud blob data, and then that will kickstart my orchestration, the orchestrator. And when it kickstarts, my orchestrator calls the first function because it's using the pattern function chaining. So what it will do first is we will create a message and send the message to the service box with the link to the URL of my image in Azure storage. And when the message is saved on the Azure service bus, the orchestrator will send an SMS and call to Twilio using Twilio API. So I will be receiving an SMS and a call using the API. And after that, I should be also getting an email. So the results of my live demo should be like I get an SMS, I get a phone call via Twilio, and I also get like an image, an email with the link to my blob storage. So let's see if I can switch a screen and show you like a demo. Let's see. I hope I'm not boring everyone. I will answer questions soon. So here is my code right now. So what you see here is my blob trigger. So this is like a starting point. So I have my connection string here on line 16, and I check if it's the blob. There's a blob. It's not empty. And when it's not empty, what I do is I'm gonna start the orchestration using this one. Start new async and send the blob, and I have it in line 37. So when this start new async is kickstarted or called, my orchestrator looks like this. So the chain one that I have in line 26 is that I will send the message to the Azure Service Bus queue here. And then when the service bus message is not empty, I will send an SMS, call the user, and then send an email. So I have functions in every activity. So for example, send message to service bus queue. This is that function. So I have my connection string here, everything, and I use the config, access it from my local settings. And when it is sent to the service bus queue, it will save it to the Azure portal and do the flow. So I will try to do the demo quickly. I think I still have time for both demo and questions. Let's see. This is I'm running locally, so hopefully my code will work today. And let's see, I have the pictures here. So I have both the pictures, my function here, and I also need my storage explorer. This is connected to my Azure storage account, which is connected to my app as well locally. And what I will do is I will choose one of the image because this will happen in parallel. So I have to make sure that my phone is also so I get a call. Let's see. So I'll upload an image to my Azure storage. So currently it's transferring. And when this is done, it should like trigger my local function that's in my machine, not on Azure yet. But everything is both like hybrid, working locally, and I have it connected. So here I can see like my backend logging and then I'm getting a call from Twilio here, and I also got an SMS with the link to that. So that's my workflow, and then it says SMS sent true to assigned user. And I also have like an Azure service bus in my Azure function. So I have everything here in one resource group, and I have a service bus here, and I had my function connected to a queue, and I I should have checked earlier, but if you can see, I have 5 messages, and in the last hour, I received one at 2:45. I think I have one here. But if we go to the Service Plus Explorer and do a pick on my messages, I was testing this earlier. So here. So I had several messages earlier. The latest was this one. This one. And this was the exact message that I received as well in my SMS. And before I end this, if you want to create Azure functions in Portal, you can just, I think maybe everyone is familiar with, you can just search functions in here, a function app. So that's like the main like box where you create one, and you can create a resource group in here, for example, and type the name of your app, and then you can choose the stack that you want. Like if you want a .NET, like for example .NET, and you can choose to have your Azure functions as code or as a Docker container. So that's the option that you have. So that's the end of my demo. Let me just show a few more learning path or tools before that. And here, I want to share also about a use case about serverless. Serverless or Azure functions is also used for identifying security problems in Azure. So they're using Azure functions to check and detect hackers in Azure. So there's actually a security project called Cloud Katana, where they use Azure functions to detect hacks in Azure. And it's pretty recent, and it's actually part of this project and helping out with advice. So this is a good one, and it's an open source if you want to contribute with this in your language. Right now, it's not in .NET, but they're using functions. And learning resources, I want to share about Microsoft Learn, durable functions documentation. And there are also a YouTube channel, Azure Functions University, if you want to learn from scratch. I wrote an article, and there is a serverless.NET library where you can see different example projects if you want to see examples. And there are free ebooks about serverless as well on the Azure website. And learning path. And next is I want to invite everyone in Microsoft user group Ghana. If any of you wants to share knowledge in my user group, you are welcome to be a speaker. Håkan and I will help you in the session, and you're welcome, all of you. So you can scan the QR code. And next week, I will be speaking as well about serverless in the Microsoft Serverless Conference. And lastly, thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you learned something and I didn't bore you. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. We learned more than something. It was awesome. In fact, I'm feeling like I'm an Azure function now.
A lot about
awesome.
Azure functions. Yes, yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
really
It was. Yeah,
yes.
it was a bit of mix of both theory, because I wanted to be like open also for beginners, and so a bit of code to those that are coding.
Exactly.
Do we have questions? Do we have
Yes,
questions so
I'm
far?
sure definitely there has to be questions. So panel attendees, the platform is yours. We have time, so don't feel, ask any question on your mind, and I'm sure Jonah will give you right answers. So there've been a whole lot of things. We've covered a lot of Azure functions. So you should have a question. I bet you. I believe you have a question. So from the team, we want to hear your question. Just unmute yourself and then ask.
I don't really have a question, but just something said into like we also use Azure Functions at Media for various things.
Okay.
So for our radio stations, we have a mobile application that a radio station can communicate with their audience. The biggest radio station we have has about probably just over 100,000 users at the moment, and they can create chat groups on the app, and we add users to those groups. So we use durable functions for that, where whenever an admin on our side creates a chat group, we need to instantly add 100,000 users to that group. And
Wow.
so we use so we get one message onto a queue, which just contains a chat group ID, and we then in the background go and look up all the users for that tenant and add them in parallel. So instantly, like 100,000 functions would get triggered in parallel.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good scenario, use case scenario that Azure Functions can be used in different ways. And the good thing about this is that you can use .NET as a language, and then you can integrate it with different APIs and tools within Azure or outside Azure. So it's pretty cool.
As well as we also use push notifications as well to send out notifications. So think about 100,000 users in a group, and someone messages the group. So you want to send out 100,000 push notifications.
Spamming.
Yeah. So imagine if we had like a single thread process that, it just like one Azure function takes 5 minutes to send out a push notification. Whereas if we use durable functions, then it's instant.
Yeah, and stateful as well.
Yeah, there's also the retry logics as well. So if a push notification fails to send for some reason, then we retry it like 5 times.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so my developers, we are waiting for your questions. Unmute yourself and ask questions. There's been a whole lot of demos, and I in fact love the hands-on demos. I mean, it makes it very real, and I mean, makes the section interactive as well.
Yes. So, yeah. If I was actually thinking a demo. This demo, it's like a mini project, but I was thinking a demo. I'd like to go to a meetup of your user group, and then get all the list of the members or those that attend this event, and then send them an SMS. But it was like a bigger project, and I need to code it with GraphQL. So I said, okay, I'll use a simple demo.
That's nice. Maybe next time you join us, we can demo that.
Yes. Thank you. So thank you for having me. I missed the group selfie, but I'm really glad to be here and see everyone.
Yes, in fact, I mean, you missed the selfie, but you are in the recordings. So
that's great. I would like to see the recording at later. It will be on YouTube, right?
Yes, it will be shared on YouTube. You will have it. Right. Can you display your user group again? Let me see the name for the people to get acquaintance with it. I would love to speak in the future. I'll make plans. So
sure. We would like to have you with us. Let's see this one. That one.
Okay.
You can scan the QR code if you want. Yes.
So let it be there for some time. We still have time as we wait for our attendees. I'm getting a signal. Some are saying the presentation was clear. You covered all the place where they were having doubts. You answered it. You answered their doubts, kind of. So yes, but we are still waiting for questions. There's still time. Okay, so we can still take questions because just after you, we'll be going for a break. And, so, panel attendees, anybody that wants to ask questions. I think you've also displayed your social media handles, right? Okay. 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 So that's your blog there,
Yes.
JonahAnderson.tech. And
Yes.
I must say that I follow Jonah, and I get, a lot of insights. She motivates me well, and I'm learning a lot from Jonah and other speakers as well. So I must say,
Yes.
he's someone you have to pay attention to when you are in this space. So for all the developers, you should pay attention to the speakers we are bringing on board. They share insights. If you follow them on their social media handles, you get cool stuff. You get cool, in-depth information, which will help you and make your career very smooth. You will not be bothered by your employers, and you will feel confident when you walk to your work place. So these are the
Yes.
right mentors and people you should follow. Yes, so
Yes.
Joseph
Thank you.
has a question. Joseph, in fact, you've won yourself a Microsoft developer t-shirt. So after the program, you should see me. You can DM me for your prize, and as well as the other guy. So yes, ask your question, Joseph.
Okay, so if I create functions in, let's say, like Azure, can I use them with another cloud vendor?
Yeah, you can actually, you mean like host it on a different cloud vendor, you mean,
Yep.
or call it.
Yeah, or call it or host it in another cloud vendor.
Maybe not host it in another, because you have Azure functions. It should be hosted in Azure. But if you want to call an API or call another function from another like service, I think it should be possible. There's also a service called Azure API Management. That is also something that you can integrate with Azure functions if you want to call APIs, external APIs, for example.
Okay, thanks.
Regarding the hosting in other clouds, it is possible. Like you could host it in a Docker container, and Docker
Yes.
containers are portable. You can run it wherever you want.
Yeah.
But the problem with hosting it in other clouds is that you'd have to host a Docker container somewhere. So it's not going to be like a consumption plan, for example.
Yeah.
You need to have a server where you host a Docker container. So
Yes.
you would need infrastructure there. Yeah, but it is possible. You could even run Azure Functions on premise if you want, because you can host it in Docker containers.
Yeah, as long as you use that the container one, then it's there's a flexibility on that. But just the Azure functions, maybe it might be like limited. So with containers, I believe that's possible because it's like cross-platform, and it can be multi-cloud.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are still taking questions. There's time. I know Jonah is very exhausted. She just came in from a presentation at her user group, so it's more than love for the community. I mean,
I know. I didn't eat my lunch yet.
Yeah.
I will eat my lunch after a break.
Wow.
It's okay.
So yes, we should ask our questions so that Jonah can get some good lunch for herself. She's done.
No problem. I'm
Yes.
good.
So yes, attendees, any question?
There's someone raising a hand.
Yes, that's Joseph. I think. Yes, he's the one
Oh,
that.
sorry, I forgot to lower my
Yes.
hand.
Okay, so we have Godfred. We have a lot of people joining us. We have people too on site with me. So this is kind of a hybrid event.
So this one is online, but there are other people
Yes,
in the person.
the other people
Okay.
that I'm
Yes.
projecting.
Hybrid. Okay.
Yes.
That's I missed that. That's good.
So,
But are there any questions on the person part right now? No questions so far.
yes, I think they are saying you have a question. Okay, so kindly talk. You can take off your mask, don't worry. Yes, Jonah, I guess you can hear him.
Not really. Can
Okay.
you repeat?
Okay, so repeat yourself.
My question is on error handling. Error handling. My question is on error handling.
Okay.
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. It was
Okay.
away from the microphone. Can you repeat it maybe instead?
Yes.
Okay, my question is on error handling.
Yeah. Okay.
My question is, how do you detect errors after you have launched your application on anything? See, some errors are not easy for you to identify in the system, but it still runs. The software still runs anyway. So how do you detect them?
I think for error handling or error logging, you can your Azure functions are connected to Azure Storage, and Azure Storage not just like store data that you work with your functions, but there's also a folder that gets connected to your settings in Azure Function Apps called Azure Web Jobs, and there you have your logs for all instances for all runs that you do. So you can see that one there. And of course, as developer, we also have responsibility to log our errors, not just log our errors, but handle errors. We don't want to we don't want to show the user an error screen with like scary data. So we have that responsibility as well. But there's application insights and logging features that you can use. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, yes. He's okay with that. Yes. So I guess if there are no more questions, Jonah, we would say not a goodbye, but go for your lunch and enjoy your lunch. We will be on behalf of the community. We say a big thank you for sharing your weekend with us. We
Yes.
appreciate your time with us, and it's been awesome as well. So
Yes.
just
Yeah.
after you, we would have a break. So have a great weekend. I know maybe you will be staying around. If in case there's any other question that comes, I would maybe chat you. So
Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, so feel free to message me anytime. There's another speaker after this, right? After the break.
Yes,
So,
there's one of the speaker after this break. So
okay.
yes. Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Jonah.
Thank you. Maybe I'll join in later after the break. We will see.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.